Hi, I'm Selena from Annie's Bookstop of Worcester, and I'm here with Peter H. Reynolds. And he is actually from, well, he is a artist, illustrator, and an author. And he also owns a bookstore of his own. So we really appreciate your coming here and doing this for us. So, anyway, what for readers unfamiliar with your work, could you tell us a little bit about what you do and how would you describe what you write?
Sure. Well, thank you for inviting me to your virtual table here. I've been on my book tour promoting Our Table, which is my newest book. But I would say I sort of lost count, but I think I've got about 78 or 80 books with my name on them. I'm an author and illustrator. A lot of people know me from the book The Dot and Ish and Sky Color. And then more recently, The Word Collector, which Michelle and Barack Obama read during lockdown. You should check that out. That's a fun YouTube gem. Lifted my spirits during lockdown. And I also collaborate with people like Megan McDonald. So I illustrate the Judy Moody series and the I Am series with Susan Verde. I Am Yoga, I Am Human, I Am Peace, I Am One. And we're working on a new one called I Am Me. And I also collaborate with my twin brother, Paul, who wrote a book called Going Places, and the Sydney and Simon series about twin mice who love science, technology, engineering, and math. So I love to create books. I love to collaborate with people. And I also love inspiring people to make their own mark, right? Because I believe that everybody has a story. And we authors and illustrators know how much fun it is to see your book on the shelf. So everybody listening, if you've got a story inside of you, that is my mission, is to encourage you to express yourself, your dream, your thought, your piece of wisdom. Join us at the author's table. And so that's one piece of what I do. I do own a bookstore in my hometown of Dedham, Massachusetts, because we noticed we didn't have one. And so that was 18 years ago, and we're still going. So people love books, which, I also encourage people to just keep in sort of front of mind that independent bookstores need you, right? We need to support Annie's. We need to support all of the indie bookstores out there. So there are some very big chains. We love them too. We love everybody who can get books into the hands of people, but there's something very special about an independent bookstore. Then I also have a media company in Boston called FableVision. So we have 35 artists, writers, animators, programmers, and we make positive, interactive media to make the world a better place. So we partner with people like Jim Henson Productions, the Smithsonian, Mass Department of Health, organizations that are trying to make the world a better place. So we have a bias for working with good people, creating positive media. So that's a little glimpse at what I do. I do about 6 books a year, and I've got more and more to come. So yeah, that's a little slice.
You have nothing to do. I mean, really.
Yeah. And by the way, I am in New York City right now, so I'm in a hotel room. So you're getting to see what my life on the road is like. So I've got a lovely room here at the Nomo Soho, down in Soho near Scholastic, which is my publisher for The Word Collector, Say Something, Be You, Our Table, which is, again, that's the new one, Our Table.
Right. And can you tell me a little bit about Our Table?
Sure. Our Table, it is a fable about a table, and it's for all ages. It is a story about a family who has become distracted by those marvelous handy devices that we have, right? Our cell phones, our um, television, smart TVs, and video games. And they're all marvelous, but they're also extremely, extremely addictive, and they demand attention. And of course, if we're giving our attention to our devices, who might we not be giving attention to? And that's, of course, the people around us, people we love. So in this story, the family's dining room table begins to shrink, and then shrink and shrink some more. And the only one who notices is young Violet. And she notices the connection that the more time her mom, dad, and brother spend on their devices, the faster their table shrinks, until it's so small she can hold it in her hand. And she blinks. I always warn people, do not blink. Do not blink at this part of the story. And of course, she blinks and it disappears. And yeah, no more table. So it's up to Violet to figure out how to bring her family back to the table.
Oh, that's a wonderful story. So
Thank
what
you.
was your inspiration for our table?
Well, I guess it's a lot of things. Partly it was growing up in a house with lots of people, 7 people, and we were all squeezed around our 1960s Formica chrome-lined kitchen table. And on Sundays, we'd go to the big wooden table, and we'd invite relatives over and friends, and we'd add that extra leaf to the table, and it actually got bigger, right? The more people we added. And so the table for me is an important symbol of family and unity. My mother also was very big on making us all tell a story. We'd have to go around the table and all share something about what happened that day. And of course, it will always end up with her, and she's a master storyteller. She's 96 years old, Hazel Reynolds. Hazel, if you're listening in England, I'm sending my love to you. She's with my sister Jane and Rini for the winter. But she was very formational, I think, in my storytelling. But now flash forward several decades, Steve Jobs invented that little thing, the iPhone, and of course, all the other technology around us, which is accelerating. It's not only accelerating in the number of devices out there, but also at how good they are. And I do give credit to all the programmers out there. You make some very, very popular and addictive stuff, right? We love to spend time scrolling and clicking, and kids playing multiplayer games, and it's all fantastic. But to what expense, right? We have to be careful that we're not spending too much time, right? We definitely have to spend at least as much time with each other, right? Mm-hmm. By the way, I heard a little tidbit, some research. Do you know how many hours we will spend, or how long we will spend looking at a screen in our lifetime? Mm-hmm. And the answer is about 9 years, a decade. Can you imagine? A decade. Imagine the next decade, and you only looked at a screen and not at a human being. Well, that's on average. And there are people who actually have a problem with technology. I mean, they're using way too much. So they're more like in the 15 to 20 year spending, looking at a screen. So it's, we don't know. And maybe in the future that will be a good thing. I don't think so. I think that being together with your friends and your family, getting that cell phone off the table, if you're brave enough, put it in another room or leave it at home, right? Imagine that, leaving your cell phone at home.
Yeah, and that's not including the TV, right? I mean, that's just cell phone type of things.
Just, yeah, right. It's there are screens everywhere we look now. Even our menus, where to order, you have to pull out a lot of times you pull out your cell phone to scan, the QR code to read the menu. And there it is. The phone is now on the table. So the story, by the way, Our Table is a fable that doesn't necessarily, I'm not saying technology is bad, because in fact, what Violet does is she goes to her father, and they watch a television show about carpentry together. She asks her mom to use her cell phone to post to see if someone knows how to build the table. She works with her brother and he uses his computer to draw out the plans. And you see at the end, they all come together and they have, wood and hammer and nails, and they're actually building a table together. And at the very, very end, you get to see them gathered around once again, celebrating and appreciating their table even more, because it's a table that they made, together. So, of course, this is a metaphor that, all of us probably need to be a little more intentional about gathering and being with each other. And, especially during lockdown, that was a tough one, right? We didn't have those opportunities to visit relatives and, grab a coffee with a friend. But, as we are moving forward into this new normal, we're learning how to do that safely. And there's another metaphor that's working in this book too that I wanted to share, and that is that our country has separated into two. It's like we're at two tables, and it really isn't the way the United States, the united table should be. We should be sitting around that same table. We can have different points of view, and we can do what we did in the old days, and that is to have civil conversations, share our ideas. We don't have to agree on everything, but I think we need to be kinder. We have to be better listeners, and respectful. Those are all things that, as we're going into the future, which is going to be an amazing future, we cannot forget those, delicate nuances that make us humans, that make us the wonderful humans that we can be. So all of my work is actually designed to give people that little nudge to be better humans. The dot is about being brave. Ish is about developing confidence. BU is about figuring out who you are as an individual. Say something. I encourage people to use that voice, whether it's your voice or it's art or music, but take what's inside here, right, in your heart, and in your dreams, your brain, and share it with the world. And ultimately, that's my mission, is to encourage everybody to realize the power of their voice, the power of their ideas, and don't leave it to other people to make this world a better place. Right? We have to be active and realize that we can make a difference and make this a better world.
I think everybody should read your books.
Thank you.
It would make it a better world. Did you have to do any research for your books?
Well, I actually did. Well, in terms of building a table, I actually had to. I'm like, how do you build a table? And it turns out there are lots of ways to build a table, and there are also lots of kinds of tables. That's a good social studies lesson for teachers out there, to think about how people gather, right? Sometimes it's gathering around a campfire. There are sometimes you gather around a piece of cloth. In some cultures, sometimes the table is very low to the ground, but there's always something to gather around. So that's something. And by the way, teachers are amazing. They're amazing at activating my books, not just reading them, but I say activating them, because they know. As soon as they read my books, they're like, I know exactly what I'm going to do with this book. And it's always, the book is a conversation starter. It's an activity starter. Teachers will dive deeply into the book and get kids, painting and drawing and writing. And of course, the table, I've already begun to see some wonderful activities cropping up around the world. Teachers are having kids design their own table. They're tying it into STEM, being able to, create a table and then doing a weight test. How many cans of soup can we stack on this, on your table? And kids will, keep redesigning their table to be stronger and stronger. And I've also seen tables in libraries painted yellow. In the book, the table ends up being yellow. And so I've seen yellow tables with place settings, but instead of food, there are, the books that the tastiest books of the month. So all sorts of great ideas. And big shout out to all the teachers out there who are doing heroes work. This has been a doozy of well, I was going to say a year, but it's longer than that. And it seems like many years, but it's been a tough one. And so thank you for doing what you do out there. And also parents, I know it's not been easy for you either. I'm a parent, and I know I tried that remote learning thing, and that was like, woo, that was hard.
I can imagine. Wow. So what was the biggest challenge that you had in writing and putting out Our Table?
The biggest challenge, I would say, well, I was working on it during the pandemic, and I think that one would think that I'd have more time to focus. I think it was just a very difficult time for all of us. I was struggling like everybody else to get through it, and I lost a very dear friend during the pandemic, and it really, it set me back. And then I had trouble even drawing, and that's strange for me because I draw constantly, and I kind of came to a grinding halt, and it took me a little while to get the motors started back up again. But I found that that creating the art actually was very healing for me. And I highly recommend it for anybody who's feeling, if they're struggling or feeling blue. The arts are a really good way to heal, whether it's reading a book that will take you on a journey to learn something, or if it's writing poetry or writing a story or creating a song or creating some sculpture. The arts are really powerful, and it's probably something that we need. Well, I know that we need more of it in schools, and I'm a big advocate for policymakers, funders, to make sure that schools have really good art programs. They also need really good libraries. We cannot let that slip. And unfortunately, some communities have, they've cut some corners, and unfortunately, it's the arts go first, and then the library goes, and and that takes a long time to repair that damage. So I hope people join me in this advocacy for libraries and the arts.
Yeah, I think creativity is so important.
Right? It is so important. And it's not just the art, right? The arts. I mean, you can use a creative disposition, to solve technology problems, medical problems, creating an organization and running an organization. People who are in the box and just go by the script don't know how to, wing it when things change, right? It's like the pandemic came. We had to rewrite the rules on everything. And I think it's the creative people that were able to, quickly begin to adapt and re-engineer what they're doing, and still keep the same goal in mind. Yeah,
I think so. And it's still not over yet. I mean,
it's not, it's not over.
It's still changing, it's still changing. So
it is, right?
Yeah.
It is. But I think, bookstores, we had to get creative. I know Annie's got creative in order to survive. Right? And technology actually was our friend for getting the word out, for, online ordering. Our store, we did deliveries to people's homes. We have an online store too, and that's that's probably a silver lining of the pandemic, because it taught us there's some new ways of connecting to people and getting books into the hands of our readers. Mm-hmm. So
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also for people who don't normally go to bookstores, they get it online.
Right. Yeah. Right. And I was right. However, we can get books into the hands of readers, that ultimately that is the goal.
Yeah. Exactly. So what else can we expect from you in the near future?
Well, I do about 6 books a year. Some of them are collaborations. So I have a new Judy Moody book coming out with Megan McDonald, a new Stink book with Megan McDonald, a new I Am book with Susan Verde called I Am Me. And then I have a new book coming out in January from Scholastic called Love You by Heart. And it's a book about unconditional love. And it's dedicated to my grandson, Thomas, who came into this world this past year. And it's dedicated to him actually before he was born. I knew he was coming, but I had to get the dedication in there. So it says to BB Hobbs, which is baby boy Hobbs. We knew he was going to be a boy. And I said to BB Hobbs, I loved you even before I met you, which is really that's how the book starts. And it celebrates all the different ways that we love our children or the people that we care about, right? It's every little morsel of their being. We love their laugh. We love the way they, they play. We love them on their good days, on their bad days. That's unconditional love. So that'll be out in January. And then I have lots of things cooking and brewing. I've got, so if you want to check out Peter Reynolds, peterhreynolds.com, you can see, keep track of what I'm doing. Again, I live in Massachusetts and in a town called Dedham, not too far from Boston and not too far from your bookshop, Annie's. And I have to get back out there sometime soon. It's a lovely, lovely bookstore. And thank you for all you are doing to get books into people's hands. And you guys are definitely, you're a treasure here in Massachusetts.
Yes, so are you. The Blue
Thank
Bunny.
you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm usually there every morning. We have a cafe now, so I go in for my coffee in the morning, and then I'm almost always there on a Saturday. So if you're making the trek through Massachusetts, you want to. Actually, I love that people do book tours. You probably have noticed that, right? There are people that come from other states, and they come to Massachusetts, and we're kind of lucky because we have a lot of really great bookstores. And so people will make the trek. They'll start at Unlikely Story in Plainville. They'll come up to the Blue Bunny. They'll shoot out west to Annie's. They'll pop up to Eric Carle Museum. We have a lot of. We're lucky. We've got a lot of good stuff here, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we have not been having book tours at this point, but we will, but hopefully when things get a little bit more settled.
Yes, people, take care of yourselves, get vaccinated.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And let's put this chapter to rest, and better chapters ahead for everybody. But until then, you can curl up safely with the book.
Yes.
And right, you can actually travel internationally just by reading a book. You can go into outer space by reading a book. You can go back in time by reading a book. So it's a good way for us stir crazy people to get out there and enjoy the world just by opening up a book.
And also, I like the feel of a book, to have something in my hand rather than looking at a screen. Again, sorry, my own.
I'm with you. I'm with you. There's something about a book, right?
There is. There really is.
Just, I did try. I tried the digital version, and it just not very satisfying. So yeah.
Anyway, I have some questions now about being a writer.
Sure.
What's your favorite part of being a writer on the whole writing and publishing process? And also for you, it's also being an illustrator.
My favorite part, I think it's being able to help people. Right? I know that my books, if that book gets to you wherever you are on the planet, you open it up, start reading. I know that there will be something for you. Sometimes it'll resonate more deeply with other people, but there's usually something in there, and not only for kids, but for adults. And that's my particular formula, is that I'm giving a gift to the grown-up reader as well. I want them to be reminded to, be more balanced, to take care of themselves, to be better listeners, to be more creative. So yeah, I think that's the reward for me.
Okay. And what do you consider the most challenging part of the writing process? And how do you overcome that?
Well, I think it's dealing with all the distractions of life, right? I think if, I've chosen to live in a metro area. I have a bookshop. I have this media company. I have children. There are a lot of distractions, and when you're writing, you have to be in that zone. And I think that to me is a challenge, just making sure that I find that time in the day where the phones aren't ringing. And and for me, it's like spotting a wave. It's like a surfer finding a wave, and it's like, there it is, there's the wave. It might be an hour long, could be 2 hours long, but I can get a lot done in that short window. But that, I think it's that, yeah, that's the biggest challenge, because once I get going, it kind of pours out.
So how do you find time to do your hobbies and things that you love?
How do I do it? I just zigzag, I zigzag back and forth. And I think after 6 decades of being on the planet, I think I figured out my method. Somehow, I always say, by hook or by crook, I get my 6 books done a year. And I think actually taking those breaks is actually good for you. I will stop in the middle of the day. I'll go have my coffee at the coffee shop, take a little walk around the block, and just keep it fresh. I think sitting there staring at a screen isn't good for anybody, or staring at a piece of paper. Just walk away, take a break, take a breath, and then come back to it with a fresh set of eyes. And
what are some of your hobbies?
Some of my hobbies, I would, my hobbies. Do I have hobbies? I think I think of my life as a hobby. Drawing for me would be my hobby. It's my work too. I actually love it. I love drawing. And it's interesting because there's there are two ways of making art, right? There's illustration, and then there's drawing. So illustration is when you're taking a sentence and you're turning it into an image. Art, making a drawing it just comes from here, and it doesn't have any words. It doesn't have a story yet. And I have to say that probably is my best hobby, is drawing opposed to illustration, right? Illustration is a bit of work. Drawing is just, put pencil down, marker down on paper, start moving my hand around, see what happens. And I'm as surprised as anybody sitting there watching me do it. I'm like, wow, this is coming out. This is pretty cool. Oh, look, it's a dragon. It's a dragon in a sports car. Yeah, it's, and then after that, you can say, is there a story there? And well, with my mind, there's always a story, right? In fact, the dragon and the sports car is my new book. I'm only kidding. I just made that up.
That would be a good
I think it would sell, right?
Sure.
Dragons are popular.
So what has been your favorite adventure during your writing career?
My favorite adventure, I think it's probably just traveling the world, sharing my stories. Many years ago, I decided I wanted to have a conversation with everybody on the planet. It just popped into my head, like, I'd like to meet everybody. And as it turns out, here I am, quarter century later, and I'm like, because my books have been translated into so many languages, I really am having this conversation with all these other human beings. And I've been very fortunate that I've been invited to other countries to meet my readers. So, I went to Brazil just before the pandemic, and that was amazing. I've been to Australia, Italy, England. I was actually going to Shanghai, and I was going to Singapore and South Korea, and then the pandemic hit, so that got put on hold. So, but seeing the world, getting to know my readers, that to me that's thrilling. And also all the readers in the United States. I do a lot of traveling. Of course, pre-pandemic, I was zipping around the country a lot. I just recently did a book tour. I was in St. Louis and Denver and San Francisco and Los Angeles. And it's fun that my work can help me see the world and meet my readers.
Right. That's great. So what's the greatest lesson that you've learned thus far in your writing career? Writing and illustrating career.
Yeah, the best lesson. Wow. The best lesson. Well, I think that it's that, this thing inside my head could be helpful. This thought I have in my head could be helpful to someone I've never met before, right? That through publishing, I've seen my books travel around the world, and I get letters from people, and beautiful letters, amazing letters, how these stories have helped, how they've been the sort of the right message at the right time. And I just think how blessed I am that I could take this thought that just started as a little spark in my head, and that it would be able to have impact on someone I never met, right? And may never have met or never meet, but through a letter or an email, I get to hear some of these stories, and I do feel blessed that I'm in that position that I can share my thoughts with the world.
So what piece of advice would you want to share with other writers or illustrators?
Keep going and never stop, right? Keep going, never stop, and just keep doing it. Keep writing. Have that journal. Have the journal for yourself. I think that's a big distinction, because I think sometimes, people are sitting there writing, saying, oh, I'm going to be sending this off to my, off to the publisher. Write for yourself. Just do a lot of writing and drawing for yourself. It will satisfy you in a way that, trying to get someone to like your stuff isn't going to do. And you'll probably find your voice by just being yourself. When it's time, maybe there's some of those stories and some of those poems and drawings that you've done in your journal, your private journal, might be ready for prime time. But you have to do them, right? So right. If you're a writer, you got to write. If you're an artist, you've got to put pen to paper. So, and you know what? It's a lot of fun. So have fun.
Good point. So are there any groups or clubs or organizations that you would recommend to other artists or writers that have helped you with your career? Sure.
Well, I would say, one of the big ones is SCBWI, which is the Society for Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. It's a long one. But scbwi.org, check that one out. It's amazing resources. I'm a member. There are lots of people who have been in the business a long time, members, but there are also people who haven't even started and they're members, just to be inspired by all of these people working on their craft. That's a really great organization. And there's local writers groups. I know that the Writers Loft, which is, I think, in your neck of the woods, they're a great group. Or maybe it's Amherst, might be the Amherst.
No, community. It's closer.
Actually, right, it is closer. Yeah. I'm forgetting where their little loft is, but a lot of great people involved in that.
Yeah.
And then also hang out with children. That's one of my, especially if you're writing for young adults or middle grade or picture books for all ages. You hang out with your audience. It's amazing. And then also test out your stories. Read them aloud to a child, because they'll tell you pretty quickly, just even their facial expressions, what's funny. Sometimes it's something's funny that you weren't intending. to be funny. They'll notice details that maybe you haven't, or they'll notice that, maybe there was a cat in one scene and not in the other scene. Like, where'd the cat go? Oh, that's right. Those kids, they follow those little details. So they're great. Kids are great teachers.
Absolutely. Okay, now I have questions about you as a person. What is one thing that most people don't realize about you?
That's a very good question. Well, I think it's probably that my parents were accountants, bookkeeper. Their mom was a bookkeeper and dad was a treasurer for a medical instruments company. My sister has several degrees, one from Harvard Business School. My older brother is a CPA, and great with finances. And so people look at me, and of course people like labels. So it's like, oh, he's an artist, or he's a writer, or he's a children's book illustrator. And they don't realize that I'm also, there's this other layer of me that, I like business. I like numbers. I like building, but really in service to building something. So like my company, FableVision, which is our interactive media studio in Boston, that, we started that 25 years ago, and it wouldn't be here if I didn't have an interest in the business side. You need money to pay the bills, the light bills, pay your employees. And so I call myself a social entrepreneur, that I can make money in order to do good things for the world. But I would, that's probably something that people don't know about me.
Right. Wow, that's interesting. You right brain, left brain.
Yeah, that's right.
Both. Interesting. What question would you like interviewers to ask you, and what would the answer be?
Fun question. Wow, that could be anything, right? Well, I there's one question I always like is like, if I wasn't doing this, what would I be doing? And my answer to that is teaching. I would love to be a classroom teacher. I would love just to share that journey with kids and to really take care of them and inspire them. Pardon my tickle in my throat.
I could see that. Yeah. Wow, very good. So what does your writing space look like? And what do you need to have around you while you're writing or editing or drawing?
It's funny because in my studio, I'm surrounded with books and things from my childhood, marionettes, and I have loads of art supplies and plants. I love plants. And it looks a little bit like an explosion, it's an explosion of color. And, but in the end, I really don't need much. I really just need one piece of paper and a pencil and maybe one ink pen and a bottle of ink and a set of watercolors. And that's really all I need. And I could do everything that I do. So, I've got this, this lovely studio that's collected a lot of things, but I don't necessarily need all of those things. They just make me feel good. But I mention that only because I want people to realize that they can get going on their own creative journey with very few tools, and they don't have to be great tools. They can be a set of watercolors from a toy store. It could be a photocopy paper. Can be a Sharpie marker. Just have them nearby so that you can capture your ideas.
Would you need to have, what do you need to have with you to drink or eat or things like that?
I grew up in a British household, so we had a lot of tea. So I have my tea kettle nearby, and sometimes when publishers will ask me, what materials did I use to make the book? And I will say ink, watercolor, and tea. And the reason I used tea is because my tea gets cold. And then instead of going and getting water for my my watercolors, I will use my tea. So I dip my brush into the tea, and then and it works fine. So so that's my secret formula. I've got tea, but I do like, I really, tea is the thing that powers me through. And then, good, nuts are good, protein. I usually have cashews and almonds around.
Okay.
I try to eat healthy food, and I recommend that for everyone listening.
Okay. And while you're writing or drawing, do you prefer music or silence? And if music, what type?
Well, I honestly, I can create in any atmosphere. Probably being super quiet is not my favorite. I like a bit of noise in the background. I do like music. Big fan of well, I love jazz. I love rock. I love Cat Stevens. I love David Bowie. But I also love the news. I'm a bit of a news junkie. I love knowing what's going on in the world. And I also like I can go to a cafe or a restaurant, and I'll have my pad of paper, and that white noise around me is very satisfying.
Okay. How important has the New England setting been for you when you're writing?
I think in my mind, my stories aren't taking place anywhere in particular, although there is a chapter book that I'm working on right now that takes place in Maine. So there's a little New England touch to it, but most of my stories are pretty universal. I quite intentionally make them to be a place that's not necessarily known, because if you're reading it in Portugal, I want you to think that this book was a story about a Portuguese family. If you're in China, it should look, it could be your own neighborhood. So. Okay.
Now, I just have two more questions for you. One is, where can people find your work, aside from Annie's Bookstop of Worcester, of course, and the Blue Bunny?
Well, I was wherever books are sold. The bookshop.org is a good site to go to. That also helps independent bookstores. If you don't have an independent bookstore near you, bookshop.org will get, just like in Amazon, it will get you the book. And money goes to help support independent bookstores. And Amazon also, as I say, the however you can get your book, but I have to be delicate about that, because Amazon does sell a lot of my books, but I am a big believer in small, locally owned independent bookstores. So I am biased. You can also go to the Dot Central. If you must get it signed by me, you could go to the dotcentral.org.com. And but again, I probably keep circling back to this, but support your local independent bookstore.
Okay. And how can we follow your work and share your awesomeness?
Thank you. You can go to peterhreynolds.com. You can also go to FableVision, like Aesop's Fables, FableVision.com. So you can see my studio. You can also see my learning company, because we also have a division that makes creativity tools for classrooms. We have engineering software, publishing software. Trying to think of what else we've got. A bunch of really cool stuff. Courses on creativity for teachers. and there's also ReynoldsTLC.org, which is our not-for-profit. And we are doing lots of really cool creative projects, including International Dot Day. I think a bunch of you out there probably know about this cool annual creativity celebration that was started by Terry Shea out in Iowa. And it just caught on and it just kept going. And the Reynolds Center has taken it on as a project. So we help fund the website and activities throughout the year now to help promote creativity in the home and also in classrooms. So lots to feast on. If you go to the site, there's loads of things. There's films that are not books. So if you like my stories, you can see more of my stories. They just happen to be in the form of animated films. And there are lots of resources for teachers and parents, a lot of free stuff. So enjoy, explore, and stay tuned because I am not done. I have much, much more up my sleeve, and I've got things that I think that will help you and your kids. So
that's wonderful.
Stay tuned.
Thank you so much, Peter. Those are all the questions that I have for you, and I really appreciate your coming and talking to me today. And
thank you.
And
thank you. I appreciate it.
That's it. Okay.
Wonderful.
Maybe someday you'll get to Annie's, and I will definitely get to Blue Bunny.
That is wonderful. Well, until then, stay safe. And again, thank you for inviting me to your table. And I'm looking forward to being there in person as soon as we can safely do so. And yeah, cheering you on. And thanks to everyone listening today. Wishing you all a creative, inspired journey.
Okay, thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.